The name of the town is Prescott, Ontario.
On the St Lawrence River, the south coast of Canada. This is how our town lies. To the south is the main street. Way back, there used to be a railway station. There's the amphitheatre. Here's a row of stores. Walker House is down King Street to the west. There's the coffee shop with the drive-through. Houses all along the grid of streets. Houses outside of town too, in fields along the riverbank. Small houses, big houses, homes.
Nice small town. You know what I mean. It is the spring of 2020. The COVID pandemic is in its unsettling beginnings. Despite Prescott's fluvial tranquility, the residents of the town know that they are living through a startling new period of history, one that will be remembered for decades to come. Local life has become even more localized, and people are confined to their houses and neighborhoods. Their social lives are drawn in, and new protocols are implemented. The places most loved and frequented are restricted, and a whole new virtual world usurps the daily life of Prescott. Businesses are run over Zoom. Families and friends celebrate birthdays over FaceTime. Communities share updates on Facebook. As the fabric of the town life has altered, so has the theatre. But artists, while physically isolated, have likewise found ways to connect. Extraordinary circumstances breed extraordinary stories. What better way for the members of the St Lawrence Shakespeare Festival community to find ways to connect with the Prescott community than to collect, embody, and share their stories?
Shakespeare himself, having lived through several periods of plague, understood that times of insularity could and should be used to explore and reflect on the human experience. Ever the humanist, Shakespeare devoted himself to uncovering the individual experience of sensational events. Moreover, he sought to celebrate these individual journeys and from them reveal the extraordinariness of life and all of its characters.
We hope that through the stories of Jasmine, Danielle, Peter, Sarah, Victoria, Michael, and Bobby, that we can also spotlight the personal impact of a grand event and unveil how, even when isolated, we all remain connected.
I'm one of the staff responsible for opening and closing the store. We have the passcodes and keys, and helping to train and teach some of the other staff. So things started getting serious when we started noticing masks. They were being ordered from Ottawa and Toronto for online delivery because their stores were completely sold out. At that point, we started thinking, woo, people are starting to take this seriously. Looks like it might be coming in this direction. And then more and more people started coming in asking for masks. And We sold out of hand sanitizer, and then like the whole toilet paper debacle. We gradually became aware of what was going on. I mean, a lot of people thought it's not affecting us. It's just people in other cities, they're overreacting. But we were noticing, we were having trouble keeping certain items in stock. So yeah, I noticed the panic buying and the shortages. I thought, maybe we should stock up a bit. But as soon as we could think about that, things were gone. So yeah, it was crazy. And then they shut down all the stores in Ontario, including ours. So it became curbside only. Oh my God. Then the website crashed, and we had all the fun telephone orders. My boss took a picture of me collapsed on a giant box with a generator inside of it because my legs were burning in pain from having run all day. We're just a small town, like a small store. We're short-staffed and making crazy sales. It was like Christmas Eve or a Black Friday sale every single day for 2 months straight without any time to catch your breath. There's a lot of stress and a lot of customers who, even in the best of times, don't respect personal space. They'd come up and touch you and get right up close to you and stuff and say, hey, no, I'm fine. I had this back in December. You can't catch it from me. And you don't have time to educate them. You have to say, you know what? It's fine if you want to believe that, but I still have to maintain this distance. I need you to maintain your distance from the other customers. You can still pass it, even if you're immune. We still have to take these precautions. Part of me, was thinking I was lucky to just keep working. Now, I wasn't working in a really dangerous environment. I was a nurse or a delivery person or whatever, going into situations. I was in a pretty small community at work. We were in our own bubble and we were taking precautions. We were with anyone from the outside, so anyway, I knew I was lucky. But on the other side, oh my God, there was no break. And so a lot of people, even if they were working from home, even if they did go back to work, a lot of people seemed to have a break. I know it was very stressful for a lot of people. At the same time, I don't know, they had time to reflect, time to clean their house, to do art projects, to visit online with their family. And I felt like, how come everybody gets a chance to have a break and I don't? I just keep waiting. Like, would they shut us down completely and then I would get a break? And they never did. Oh man. In fact, it's even busier than ever. It feels like it just hasn't stopped. I can't take a break. Everyone being so busy with where they are, for me to take time off now, I would just feel, I don't know, guilty. Leaving my coworkers short-staffed, even though sometimes I feel dead tired. I've had near-death experiences. I've had blood poisoning. Ooh. So I went from being a little sore to being rushed to the hospital. It gave me a couple of hours to live. So they said they couldn't reverse it. It was like that, I don't know, it was kind of shocking, and I made some changes then. That's when I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to run a marathon before I die. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that because, you know what? I don't know, you just kind of say, oh, well, you know what? You've got lots of time. And I realized I didn't know how much time I had and how much time I was going to have, how much, I don't know, it just made me bold and it made me do some certain choices. I could even join a community musical. What's the worst that can happen? Am I going to die? It almost happened before, so it changed my courage a little bit. So I've been thinking about our future recently. Our society is so materialistic, so hedonistic, so focused on self. Our economy is pretty much, driven to satisfy that. I don't even think it's that good for individuals or society in general. I like the idea of sharing and being close to nature and not being obsessed with possessions and all that. I think this is what's made a lot of people stop, and they've taken stock of what's necessary compared to what is frivolous. I think it's made a lot of people realize how dependent we are on people outside our area for supplies, for food, for everything. So what I'd like to see is some of the paring down, some of the self-sufficiency that's come up during this time, that's come out of fear and come out of desperation. I'm hoping that some of that stays. That's, I don't know, out of a sense of wanting to create a better lifestyle for themselves and their communities. Things like, I don't know, more gardens, more people gardening, more sharing of what they have, less materialism, you know, more concentration on what matters, right? Like some understanding about how some of the people that are the least respected in our society are the ones that have kept going in this. The food servers, the truck drivers, the kids working at the grocery store, those people are our heroes. In the first few weeks, when everything else shut down, I couldn't walk into a grocery store without getting emotional. Watching these teenagers dealing with all this stuff, right? And even knowing that my daughter was one of those kids that was working when so much of the population was not. These kids were just so brave. And part of it wasn't their choice. And this is their income. This is what they had. But they, I don't know, you know, they showed up. They showed up and they put up with, oh, I don't know, people are just so cruel. It's too much cruelty. I'm hoping that we see less of that and a lot more appreciation. Because there are some people, oh, even today, some people are grateful and appreciative, and I'm hoping that we get to see more of that. And we feel more of that, and less of the me, and the selfishness. I mean, it's always going to be there, unfortunately, but I'm hoping that these kids will grow up seeing more of the collaboration, more of the let's build an economy for our country with things that people need. Let's work on diverse food production. Let's work on being able to build stuff that we need. Stuff that we need, right? Like from our factories, essentials, less on the materialism and the stuff that doesn't improve anybody's lives. It's just there. It's just a waste of resources and our time and our energy. Man, we've got so much. I come home and I try to research as much as I can, as much as possible. I try to get like the best evidence, look at the health, what the health unit has to say, and I'm like, okay, how can I best protect myself and my family? What are the best practices? Fine. But you can't teach everyone in a 10-second interaction at work. I mean, this town is an interesting mixture. We noticed that when you came here in Prescott, you have the old money, and you have a lot of money, and then there are people like who are on the welfare department have settled into Prescott because there's so much cheaper to house them here than in the city. So you've got the complete opposite ends, right? And we also have families who are young families who are working in the city because they're living here. I mean, they're living here because it's quieter, and they have artists in the area. It's really different. It's like a melting pot that you might not even expect. You could be as poor as church mice and still have a good life here. You know, you have to appreciate the good things that are around you. A few years back, I had a really bad injury. I didn't even know if I was going to be able to walk. When I started to heal, that's when I discovered running. It was less painful for me than walking. So I started to run everywhere, all the time. The more I ran, the more it strengthened the muscles around the injury. So running actually kept me from ending up in a wheelchair. I run because I need to. I run, I don't know, because I like it, because I can. Because I can. I know that might not go on forever. If my injury does really get bad again, I don't know if I could end up not being able to walk or run properly. So when I run, I'm like, this is another day. I get to run. I appreciate it while I can because I know it's not going to last.
Well, the significant change in my life is Zoom. Actually, the first time I used it was, the end of March, after Walker House. Well, Sue Vallum had set it up because Walker House was closed, and then all their programs closed down. And a lot of people depend on Walker House for their human connection. A lot of people live alone, like me, and so on. So Sue set up the Zoom through Walker House for all the different programs. Now, usually I go Tuesday afternoons for crafts and coloring, and, well, mostly coloring, adults coloring. Anyway, she set that up. There's one for the knitters, and there's one for the quilting group, one for the artists. This morning was Use Your Noodle. I mean, it's, mostly questions and jokes and just more or less to keep the brain going. Guests on Wednesday afternoons. Now that's usually interviews with members and non-members, interesting people. I have read, and I'm going to read this Friday, one of my stories and some of my poems. Friday afternoon is Read Me a Story. Oh, that one is on the phone, so it's a conference thing. So that's pretty cool. And when I realized that this virus was serious, I mean, it will be seared in my brain forever. I mean, I had heard about it, but I thought it was over there, like the SARS. It didn't affect me. But as you know, you could hear it on the news, but it was nothing that I had to worry about. That is, until, again, Walker House. There was a big group of us, because I'd been pretty involved with it, and there was an instructor, and, that was the week before, and we first made masks. And then there was 5 or 6 of us on Friday the 13th, and we were painting them. Now that was on the 13th. And on the 17th was the St. Patrick's Day dinner. Now, we do that sort of thing at Walker House. Mardi Gras in February, people would bring like food, and they'd have somebody talk about that particular holiday. Chinese New Year's in January. Anyway, I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I had heard something on the news about COVID. So I called Sue, the head of Walker House, and I said, are we still having the St. Patrick's Day dinner? And she said, no, Walker House has been shut down. She said, all of Prescott has been, anything official has been shut down in Prescott. And I said, what? Seriously? And she said, yeah. I said, it's really that bad? And she said, yeah, it's that bad. Well, then I did some research, and oh my God, I have been living in a cave. I mean, it didn't affect me, so I didn't care. But now, I mean, I do care. It has affected me in ways like Well, my nieces and nephews, I mean, there are a lot of birthdays in June. They're little. They turned 7 and 9 this year without me. Now, I have been going to their birthdays since they were, since they were born. I mean, Zoom is one thing and Facebook time, but it is not the same as being there. And I miss it. What I've been doing since COVID? Well, I decided to refurbish my dining room, do the floors. Well, now everything, all my furniture is in my living room. I still haven't varnished them yet. And I have a lot of time. But I have become lazy somehow. I mean, I have lots of time. I'm not going to Walker House. I'm not going for dinners. I don't go see my friends. And I sleep. I sleep. Anyway, another thing I've done. I have developed a very sophisticated wine list. I whine about this, and I whine about that. I mean, all my TV series have ended until God knows when. I don't want to get up in the morning. It's raining again. I want to go back to bed. It's too hot. I whine about a lot of stuff. But I did buy a unicorn. It's a pool toy. I've been using it in the river to attack people. Well, those in my social circle, of course. It bites them. Well, I did make a list of talking points. Now, I do think you should mention Sue Vallum from Walker House. Since this COVID thing, she has been a saint. She's been getting us on the phone, she's been on Zoom, she's been connecting us. And she puts out a newsletter every week with all the news. I mean, she has been, especially for us shut-ins, a rock through this. And I joined Walker House last September, and I've been pretty involved with it. I'm a widow, so it has been a godsend. Now, when my husband died, well, that was isolating for a while. And when I was 17, both my parents died within 2 months of each other. And I was, kind of shipped around for a while. But in terms of isolation and relationships, what this pandemic reminds me of, well, I used to work nights and my husband worked days. Now, I'd come home, he'd go out to the car, he'd go off to work, and I'd go in the house and sleep. Now, that was very isolating in terms of relationships because I couldn't see anybody. And he never really knew our neighbors. But I know all my neighbors now. And they are all good people. Now, when all of this started, I didn't feel isolated, really. I have my cats. 2 cats. They have been wonderful through this. If I didn't have a cat, I'd get a cat. You don't have to walk them. I mean, they just wrap themselves around your heart. Oh, I have always loved cats. They are excellent company. One's 14 and the other is 3. Oh, I'm surprised that she's not sitting here on the chair beside me. She loves, well, she sleeps with me, beside me at night, with the older one at my feet. I never had children. Oh, I would have liked to have had children. I love children. But it just wasn't in the cards. You know, you don't have a choice in the matter. I'm a pet parent. Oh, oh, I am not a party girl. No, I don't party. Well, not anymore. I don't go to bars. I mean, I've maybe been to a bar once in my life. I come from a religious family. I mean, I'm the only heathen in the family because I'm the only one that doesn't go to church. But I do very much believe in God. I'm a Christian. Well, I smoked for 40 years. That was my vice. But I gave it up 12 years ago. But boy, I smoked. Well, not pot or anything. Well, you know, it's legal. My neighbor across the hedge, he has a little garden. It's kind of hidden. I am sure there are more pot plants than 4. He smokes it over there. I can smell it wafting across the driveway. Oh, I am so worried that my cats are going to come staggering home and say, "Mommy, look what I got next door. Give me more." But yeah, you can smell it, depending on where the wind blows. Now, normally, I'd be going to the Outer Banks with my husband's family, but I can't go there. I mean, I can't even cross the border. I can't go and see my nieces. I can't even go to Ogdensburg. Well, not that there's much there anyway. Oh, do not get me started on Trump. Do you know that he is trying to cancel universal health care and kill millions of people? Why do they shoot the good ones and not the bad ones? I wish they'd give him a stroke or something. Oh, I didn't say kill him. Just put him out of commission for a few years. And put him in a Bellevue or a nut house or somewhere where he's barely sentient. Give him a stroke, and then he wouldn't be ruining the lives of North Americans.
At times it's just like I gotta get out of here. Well, we're all kind of up in each other's grills here. Pretty small house, and the kids are used to living on their own, and we're used to living on our own, so it's a challenge. I just bought a Fender Telecaster, one of the elite of the electric guitars. It's not the one that I played in the show. That one was going to be like $2,800 to buy it outright. I was renting it because my old one had a lot of things that needed replacing. I'd taken it in right when we started to rehearse, and the guy goes, "Well, I'm going to need like a week or two to fix this up." And I thought, well, that's a problem. So I said, "Can I rent a guitar?" And he goes, "Oh, sure." So he brings out this case, opens it up, and I think I gasped because it was a Fender Telly with maple fingerboard, and it was beautiful. So I'm like, oh yeah, sure, this one will do. And I wanted to get it so bad, but I couldn't justify the expense. So then we were doing this other show, and the director wanted me to play this song, and I thought, oh, I need a better guitar to play this song. It's just going to sound so much better for the song. So I went back to Long and McQuaid, and I expected I was going to be renting the same one, and the guy comes out with this one that looks, well, it looked exactly the same, but it was only $19.50 to buy it out. So I thought, interesting. And I stashed that idea away. And so I kept renting it, and then the show got canceled. And I didn't want to get rid of it. You know, I was playing it a lot, and I didn't want to stop playing it. And then about 3 weeks ago, we found out that we could cash in all of our 2019 holidays, you know, because of COVID. And that was like the first time in 22 years with the company that we've been able to do that. So I thought, well, how many 2019 holidays do I have? 2,600. Minus the tax, sell my other guitar. I just think I figured out a way to buy my Fender. Yeah. So I got the Fender. Yeah, I play it all the time. It's like one of my nighttime rituals. There's this guy out of France. Well, he's actually American, but he lives in France because, you know, girls. Anyway, he's got these online courses, and they're really excellent, so I've been working on that, and yeah, it's been real good. Oops. It's funny that it's not plugged in. I find collaborating with music for me is like kind of like therapy. I could be having the worst day ever. I just want to kill everybody within a 50-yard radius of me, and then I go and I sing and play for like an hour and a half, and it's all gone. All the crap just goes away. And music and collaborating with people is, I think, very therapeutic. I don't remember what day it was. My last day of work was March 13th. So Thursday, the 11th or the 12th, when they announced that March break was going to be extended. And some of my coworkers have kids. So I was the first one, like, my phone banged or something came up. And I said, oh, March break's been extended. And everyone was like, what? And that's when it hit me. I knew that this was pretty serious. Sure enough, within a few days, like over the weekend, things really ramped up. And I brought a bunch of stuff home from work because I thought, you know, I don't think I'm going to be going into the office next week. And I've only been back twice since. And then they said, okay, well, this looks like it's going to be a while. So I went in and I grabbed my monitor and my chair. And for me, that was confirmation that I wasn't going to see the inside of my office for a real long time. And Becky, my daughter, she just graduated in Toronto. And she lives downtown. So she was a little bit anxious about what was going to happen with school. And the other really bad thing is that the following week was supposed to be her job fair. You know, where all the employees come in and they meet the grads. The majority of them get snapped up and get jobs. Yeah, so the timing was shit. Yeah, so she was just beside herself. The job fair got canceled. She hadn't had her grad pictures done. And then grad got canceled. You know, it was all just like a house of cards. It just came tumbling down. She was all by herself, you know, all alone in downtown Toronto. She was pretty worried, pretty upset. So she called us and she was crying. We were trying to calm her down. And I said, I think it was a Monday. And I said, I'll come get you tomorrow in the morning. So I got up, went and got her in the morning and packed up what she needed to get ready for school and we came home. The school's been passing out employers, leads for jobs, but it's like 10% of what they normally would get. So, but she's been working hard, trying to get a job. So we're heading into the city tomorrow. She's got an interview. She's got an interview at 2, so we'll just drive in, come on back. Yeah, you do what you gotta do. I hear stories about kids, apparently out on their own, who feel like they can't go back home. I can't get my head around that. It's like I always said, doesn't matter what happens. You always have a soft place to land. You always have a home to come back to if you need to. And my wife Julia, she's working 3 days a week up in the city. So normally, we drive up together. I'd drive her up to the city, drop her off, and then continue to my office, and then pick her back up again. That was our time to chat. But now she's doing all the driving, and I can't even say, hey, I'll go into work today, because I can't. Well, she was working at home for the first 3 weeks, and then they started up again. 3 of them doing the spots of 10, essentially, so she's working super long hours, and she's really exhausted. So by the time she gets home, she doesn't really want to talk. So yeah, the past few weeks have been not acrimonious, but definitely different. The connection that we used to have commuting together. She's tired. Like, I'm feeling a little guilty because my grueling day. Go for a bike ride, have a swim, sit down for work, maybe go for another swim, go for a swim after lunch. So yeah, it's a little different, and I'm definitely feeling that it's having an effect on us. Plus with the kids at home and Becky not being able to get a job. So yeah, it's not super relaxing all the time. When this pandemic first started, I think I was having, well, not flashbacks, that's too dramatic, but recall of the ice storm, which was, I remember it really clearly. It was very traumatic for me, because I had a pregnant wife and a toddler in this house, and I remember feeling very much like I had to take care of everything and everybody. So when this thing started happening, I guess I felt the same way. Like, I gotta get everything under control. Like, I gotta take care of everything. I gotta make sure that we have food. And yeah, so it kind of reminded me of that. I remember the house. It was only 2 weeks that we were without power, but my parents, they lived down in southwestern Ontario. So I called my dad up and I said, hey Dad, do you know anybody with a generator? I mean, we're kind of freaking out here and there is no generator. And he goes, I'll call you back. So he went down to the Home Hardware in his hometown and rented a generator and brought it up for us, which is a 7.5, 8-hour drive on icy roads with power lines down and trees falling. He drove in his pickup truck and he brought us a generator. And he worked for Hydro, so he knew how to hook it up. And he knew exactly what to do. Until that happened, I never understood how people would stay in their house. Like if there's a forest fire or a flood coming. Until I lived through that. And now I totally understand it. It's like, I'm going to stay in this damn house. I'm going to take care of my family. I'm going to take care of the house. And I don't give a shit what happens. I'm not going anywhere.
is going to be a lot of fun because I've got a lot of noise going on with the neighbors next door. Yeah, from Star Trek. Jean-Luc Picard. What is the actor's name? The actor, what's his name? Patrick Stewart. That's it. Okay, so he's being interviewed on NPR, and they were, well, he of course is a well-known Shakespeare actor and has done a lot of roles, so they were talking about this aspect of his life. And I was only catching bits and pieces of it. But at some point he was going into a play, reciting one of the parts. And they were talking about what a fabulous part this was. And then he said, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. And my friend, who's not here listening, said, I'm so glad he didn't say tomorrow again. I so hate repetition. And I told him, he's saying a speech from Shakespeare. Shakespeare. Well, you know, for us it was probably a more entertaining and busier time despite COVID. I mean, despite the cancellation of our trip, because we were going to travel and everything was arranged. And so we were very aware of what was happening because, you know, places were shutting down. Travelers were being affected. I mean, we were literally going, okay, if we go on this cruise, what happens if the world shuts down and we have to come back at the end of the cruise and be in quarantine? Like how do you prepare for that? You know, what happens if you get stranded in a foreign country? You know, are we ready to deal with that? Do we want to deal with this? And then, of course, you know, our departure became closer. Our cruise was changed. Ports had shut down. The destination port, which was Rome, was no longer open. So we were told, okay, the cruise is now ending in Athens. And yeah, we had to rebook our flights. So we said, are we still prepared to do this? This trip had been planned since 2018. We had actually pre-booked that cruise 2 years ago. We booked our flights in January. So, you know, everything was in place and we became more and more aware of what was happening, and we started tracking, you know, what cruises were doing what ports were closed, what's happening where. We were flying into Dubai. I mean, what's happening in Dubai these days? And we're not hearing anything, but we waited with a cancellation at the last possible minute because, you know, we knew we were better off if the cruise line canceled, and they did. First, they canceled the final port, and then within a week after that, they just said, we're canceling all cruises. That's it. We'll give you full refunds for absolutely everything. No questions asked. We're just going to do it. And they did. Oh, the reason we took the cruise. The reason we took the cruise? Well, you know, they have the brochures when you're on the cruise encouraging you to book your next cruise, and when we looked through them, we found this one, and it sounded really interesting because John had actually been posted in the Middle East, in the Cairo area at one point. And we had this running joke. He's going to take me to every place that he's ever been posted. You know, and he spent time in Cairo and in that area, and you know, we were going to explore Oman and Petra and then go through the Suez Canal, which is something he'd always wanted to do. It intrigued him, you know. Anyway, it was a part of the cruise. So, you know, I figured, okay, Dubai and that whole area in there, I mean, there's, you know, no other way we're ever going to get back there again. You know, we're not going to get back to that part of the world. We're not going to fly there and spend time. So, you know, this was a good way of doing that. So yeah, there were a whole bunch of reasons for this particular cruise. Why we booked it 2 years ago. We would have been gone a month. You know, and then life changed. Well, my 23-year-old stepson Tom was abroad on a work travel visa in Australia. He'd gone over about a year ago, planning to stay for 2 years before moving on, and he'd done everything that needed to be done to qualify for that second year. He was working at a hotel when the world basically shut down, and he was put on, what do you call it? Well, he wasn't working. You know, he wasn't fired, but he wasn't laid off. You know, places had shut down. They said, there's no work for you. We'll call you back when the world opens up again. And then the visa people came back and told him his visa wouldn't be extended. They said, well, you have choices. You can apply for reconsideration. Here's the fee for that. Or you can leave the country and come back, and here's the fee for that. And he said, yeah, there aren't many choices, really, realistically. So we got the call. Visa not renewed. I need to come home. And that was April 19th, and we were well into COVID by then. So now we had his mom, his dad, and me all researching. Okay, how do we get you home? He had to fly out of Sydney, and that, you know, that was about the only choice. So first he had to get a flight from, you know, all the way across the country. And then there was the question, if you travel across Australia, do you have to quarantine in Sydney? Could he find a hotel where he can stay? Because he had to stay overnight before he could fly the next day. You know, it's a long flight from Australia to Canada. And there aren't many route options. And, you know, at this point, the only available route was through San Francisco. But if you land in San Francisco, you know, do you have to quarantine in the US? How do you deal with that transition? So there was a lot of research going on, you know, a lot of phoning of airports, diplomats, Canadian embassies, and like, you know, how do you bring a person home from a foreign country? Yeah, but anyway, we worked it out. Whew. He didn't have to quarantine anywhere. He could stay in a hotel in Sydney, and, you know, he could get on the flight the next day. And apparently the plane out of Sydney was really quite empty. So he had 3 seats to himself. So did every other passenger. Landed in San Francisco, spent his hours, got the flight out. Now he's switching to Air Canada, and Air Canada was shutting down operations between the US and Canada because the border was closing. So there was a little bit of worry from his dad, but the flight had been booked. And then we found out that Air Canada was shutting down operations as of the following Monday. So he was on one of the last flights out of Australia. And the San Francisco-Toronto route would also be shut down. So he was on one of the last flights there too. Yeah, they were only doing once a day, or once like every other day. Every other couple of days, or something. So he was there on, I guess by then it was Saturday. So, I don't know, whatever. The second last flight leaving the US flew into Toronto. Ottawa flights had mostly shut down. I mean, they were now down to 2 a day instead of every hour. And then the flight from San Francisco to Toronto was quite packed, apparently, as was the flight from Toronto to Ottawa. So yeah, he spent He spent many hours in Toronto waiting because he couldn't get on the early flight. He had to get on the late flight. And so it was, what, past midnight before he landed in Ottawa? Thursday, Friday, Saturday night? Yeah, 3 days after he left Sydney. Whew, it was a long trek. And he stayed with us because, well, you know, we were the only ones that had space for him to quarantine out of his circle of friends and family. Fortunately, our friends down the road had already parked their RV on their site, but they weren't using it yet. So we organized getting it hooked up with electricity and water and all the rest, and getting it outfitted with food for him. And brought him home. And that's where he quarantined for 2 weeks before moving in with us. Worried? No, I was not particularly worried, you know. Would that have helped? You know, what'll be will be. Yeah. You know, it was a challenge. The research took a while. Yeah, it was a busy week. And you know, I figured, okay, Dubai and that whole area in there, if there's no other way we're ever going to get to that part of the world, fuck. Because John had actually been posted in the Middle East.
It's called a Perdizo. I mean, this would be archaic, backwards, low tech for North America, but in South America and the Middle East and Africa, this is what they used. When you consider you either go out into a dirty field, slice open the scrotum and take the testicles out and leave it like that, or you band the testicles, wait for them to atrophy, die, and fall off, which can be very painful and in the height of summer can make them susceptible to infection and that kind of thing. This literally just crushes the vas deferens, so sperm can't be transferred, and eventually the testicles just don't disappear altogether, but just sort of shrink up. So when you weigh all the options for goat castration on the table, this is fast and easy. I'm just a natural rage against the machine type of person. If someone says this is the way it has to be done, I have to ask, are you sure about that? I mean, are there not other ways? I mean, I care about animals very deeply, and sometimes it's just necessary to do things like this. Well, so I don't have to pay a vet hundreds of dollars. The goats I just castrated are going to be pets. I mean, they're not always aggressive, but certain times of year, the smell across the road and down the lane, you can smell them. They pee on their faces and everything to make it extra stinky, and without those testicles, those urges, not so much. Well, so that was an excellent way to start the day. Where we are, we have a lot of space with the trails and the trees. I mean, it's easy to sit at home, pretend this isn't happening. Everything's fine, but I couldn't. Look, I couldn't be in a better place, and I am so grateful. Still, it wasn't enough to say, my family's looked after now, so there's nothing to look into, because
A lot of comfort coming out of this time comes from a place of privilege. So if you're financially stable, which thank goodness we happen to be in that position. But I mean, I'm rather painfully aware that a lot of people, virus or no virus, having these kind of restrictions, it's not easy and relaxed and fun. It's stressful. And I hold all of that. I celebrate with the people that are happy and celebrating, and I feel that I suffer along with the people that suffer as much as I can. I was aware, end of January, beginning of February, that the reports of COVID was a potential, well, I don't want to say red flag, but the WHO who were saying it's fine, don't worry about it. And it's a little bit like when the WHO says, you need to be really concerned about this. And I say, do I? You know? My journey in terms of my interest in medical stuff and science and all of that kind of thing started 10 years ago when I gave birth to Anna. It ended up being an absolutely horrific experience. We had moved out into the middle of nowhere. We had no friend or family support out there. I was very excited when I got pregnant, but a little trepidatious. Did all my research, yada yada, but was feeling good about it. I ended up being paired with an obstetrician that had very different ideas. But along the way, I thought, it doesn't matter what she thinks. My body, my baby, this is how I want to do it. I mean, we had some conversations throughout the pregnancy about different things, like I didn't want the cord cut and clamped right away, and she laughed at me. But I thought, it doesn't really matter what you think, lady. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Little did I know that once you're in the midst of having a baby and you're on their turf, legally you may have all the rights in the world, but it's very easy to be taken advantage of. So, I was told that if I didn't consent to a cesarean section, my baby would die. There were no midwives. There weren't even doulas there. I was so traumatized. And I thank goodness the baby was okay. I was severely depressed for almost that entire year postpartum. And towards the end of that year, I decided, I need to know what happened. I need to understand why my body failed. I went to the hospital and I requested my records because I wanted to know. You know? Why did my baby almost die? So I got my medical records and it basically said, failure to progress, which meant the doctor had to work the next morning. She had electively delivered all her children via C-section because she felt it was the superior way. The hospital record said the baby was perfectly fine. There was no threat to her life. There was nothing wrong with my body. It was just taking too long, which amounted to 5 hours of labor in the hospital before it was deemed too long. And that set me on a journey. I just immersed myself in research because to me there was an imbalance of power of, I'm a doctor. I know things, you know nothing. So I thought, I'm going to go out there and educate myself just as well as any doctor or nurse so I can't get tripped up on those things when they say, oh no, you have to do this, or this is standard protocol. I learned legal rights, and I mean, I could easily deliver a baby today. I just learned everything about it, questioned. And somewhere along that road, I started looking at vaccines and the network I got involved with. I mean, when this thing with COVID started happening early on, those circles were already talking about it and sharing information. So there was already buzz and there was already discussion going on. Yeah, I was just watching it and learning about it. And I was curious, not overly concerned. And then March! and it's March break, and, well, we're going to let the kids finish out the week, and then it's March break, and we don't think that the kids are going to come back right away. And I remember thinking, if it's that serious and dire, how come the kids are staying in school till Friday? So I thought, what's different about this? What do I need to know about this? And so I spent mid-March, approaching the end of May. I was hours every day, and well, that's how I operate. I read studies. I read case reports. I listened to interviews. Oh, I read transcripts from the WHO, from the CDC. Looked at ongoing recommendations. I'm just obsessed. I mean, to be perfectly honest, it's a defense mechanism that I've learned from what happened with Anna and different things. It's sort of like I won't be caught unaware. No, I don't want to be caught in a position where someone can say, you have to do this because of this. And I know nothing about it and have no rebuttal, you know? Oh, and it's not for anybody else but for me and my family. It's certainly not about I know best. And because if I've learned anything about anything over the years is that nothing is certain. We don't know anything for certain. It's all belief. And you can say, oh, it's science and fact. And I mean, well, the whole thing about science is that nothing is certain. So we all just subscribe to a belief. And you can say your belief is most factually based, but in the end of the day, what do you believe? And that's sort of what everybody goes by. I mean, the WHO listed vaccine hesitancy as one of the top 10 threats to global health. And they're not just talking third world countries. And I know, because it's a belief. The vaccine issue is like the childbirth issue, because if you were to ask someone who does not even have children, who's never even considered having children, who isn't even in a long-term relationship with someone, not that you have to be in a long-term relationship anyway, they've never given it serious thought. And when you say, where should a person give birth? Well, in the hospital, because that's where it's the safest. How do you know that? There are lots of things we walk around with. Programming. You don't know why you know it or believe it or defend it so staunchly. You just say, that's the way it is. With COVID, the mistake that we make is looking for a singular cause. I think the whole planet is sort of in this place where we are all experiencing the accumulative effect of a lot of different things going on simultaneously. I mean, I don't just subscribe to fear for fear's sake. I try to educate myself to the point where I can get beyond the fear. But I feel that there are some things where there isn't any choice but to be concerned and then hope for the best. My beliefs are always evolving. I'm a puzzle person, right? Lock me in an escape room type thing. Love that kind of stuff. Jigsaw puzzles. I love. It just comes so smooth and easy for me. I see an issue like this, like a jigsaw puzzle. We're told what the picture's supposed to look like. I'm trying to find the little pieces. And isn't it interesting, the little pieces you come across that fall into place? And to me, the picture we've been given and the little pieces that are here and there, they don't entirely add up. And that's what COVID's been for me. We don't know anything for certain. It's all belief.
We don't get out much. I spend my time with a small group of people. I have a small group of friends in town who are not townies. I'm a townie. I can't deny being a townie. I was born here and grew up here. My wife's an introvert. She runs our social scene. It's marriage. It's the way it is. If Allison has to tolerate somebody, she doesn't have time to be... If we're spending social time with other people, she wants to feel safe and unguarded. I guess that's the same thing. She wants to be able to have worthwhile conversations at similar levels, with similar interests, similar life experiences. So the majority of people we circulate with in this area are not from here. A lot of the people that were born here stay here and have very, very small experience of the world. It's not that she dislikes those people. It's not that she feels better than those people. It's just that she has nothing in common with those people. When I came back to town, I was gung-ho about being part of the community. It took me 6 years to get that out of my system. I just don't think the way people around here think. Neither is good nor bad. It's just I was causing a lot of problems. My son's not easy. Philip's a challenge. A different thinker. So, the change in Philip's thinking process from high school to first-year university interested me a great deal because he was very, very conservative in his thinking process when he was younger. And he didn't get that from his mom or dad. It's weird. And it's fascinating the way the first two kids had morals and thinking processes that replicated what they learned at home. And the third one, from when he was born, has been different. I had to work really hard with Philip. He was a kid I had to do homework with right from the very beginning. And I had to stick handle the boy through school. Allison couldn't do it. Allison's tolerance level is... she could make me do it. But Allison's tolerance level is... she and Philip are very similar. They can be very stubborn. It's nothing for Philip to tell me I'm stupid. The teacher says it's this way, not that way. It's all wrong. I can't do it. So that would put Allison over the edge, and she'd flip and walk away. And I would come in, and we would work together and solve the problems and build techniques to get past his walls. And if I'd lose my cool and get physical with him, he'd look at me and say, "That all you got?" Yeah. So the standard respectful fear you'd hope to have as a parent to a child, there was none. So, I'd have issues with the way he viewed women, and I'd have issues with the way he thought about race, because he could be very harsh at times. And then he went away to school, and he decided, I've always tried to teach my kids to shut up and listen. It was a lesson I learned in high school from my friends. Because I talk, and because I talk, I think everything I say is valuable and that everyone else wants to hear it. I'm making fun of myself here. But in grade 11, something took place and someone made a comment that I never shut up or let anybody else talk. So I spent a year listening. I took it to heart that my opinion is just my opinion, and there are many, many opinions. Everyone has their own path, their own experiences. Tried to teach that to my kids. The other two listened a great deal. Philip, well, he absorbs. But the year he's been away, he came back. He did a paper on white privilege, which surprised the hell out of me, because he would have been the first guy to say there is no such thing as white privilege. He would have said we all have the same opportunities, the same experiences. We do what we do with what we've got, and let's just smarten up. No one's got more privilege than any other. For me, well, that's hard to argue because here I am, a white guy in this little town, and what do I know about what other races had to go through to get what I've got? I don't think I'm privileged, but nobody gets in my way. Nothing gets in my way because of who I am or what I am. So we just don't understand. He's come a long way with that on race. The closest I've come is not being able to watch PBS in February. Because it kills me. It hurts my heart and soul to see what black people have gone through. It blows me away how in my lifetime people are treated by the majority of society like they're not people. Not second-class citizens, they're just treated like they're not people. And that hurts, so much so that I told Allison, I can't watch it with you. I just cannot do that. There's very little I can't watch, but personal oppression and systematic discrimination just defeats me. I get this. Aren't I glad I'm Canadian? Which is this bullshit fact that we didn't do that to other people. Which of course we did. Anyway, I guess the slave trade's been around forever. You subjugate the lower classes to do your work, right? The one systematic fact I picked up recently is that when Americans returned from World War II, they passed a bill to offer subsidized mortgages so you could come back and get a home. Black people were excluded. I didn't know that. So when we talk about systematic discrimination, I mean, these guys went. They volunteered. They did what they did. They fought hard and did what the white guys were doing beside them. And then they come back, and the white guy gets a mortgage for nearly nothing and a home at a subsidized rate. And then it's like, we don't want you to own anything because that where we are, we don't want you there. That's horrendous in my mind. My business is a personal business. It involves these kinds of conversations. So now, because of the pandemic, we can't have these conversations. The majority of my business is in Ottawa, so I drive to Ottawa and I commute there 2 days a week. So I wasn't able to do that. But the neat thing is, we're suddenly forced into using the technology that's all been available to us. So an hour-and-a-half meeting by phone or video isn't preceded by 45 minutes to an hour of driving, and then followed by 30 to 40 minutes of driving to the next appointment, and the next appointment. Now it's all happening bang, 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 bang. Without knowing it, we got so far behind on the things we promised to do that I wasn't sleeping. I was like, what is wrong with what's going on? Then we realized we were just way more efficient as far as meeting people went. So we were just creating too much work because it was easier to get to people. So I said to my staff, no more appointments for 2 weeks until we get caught up. So it took us 2 weeks to dig ourselves back out, and then suddenly we were ahead of the game. We understood what was going on, and we caught a much more efficient groove, did a much better job of prepping and a cleaner job of meeting notes. It's very, very interesting that because of COVID, we became more efficient. At the beginning of the year, I said to my kids, you know what? I really want to change our carbon footprint. I want to build it into how we work. I want to build it in how we live. And so, how do I make the business work better? I have to make my clients understand that the majority of time we meet, we don't have to be meeting. So if I can meet more people electronically, I can work harder. I can see more people. I can get to you more frequently. So I wanted to push this as reducing our carbon footprint because it's true. I do want to reduce it. So I was really interested in doing this properly, and then COVID hit. And people are now on Zoom, and people who haven't been comfortable with technology are on video. That was our biggest change. Why did we become busier when other people have time for Netflix?
on both sides of the spectrum. Totally quarantining at home, and now I'm an essential worker. I work in a cafe, so it's not really essential. Around February, our employers started putting out these rules, which were like, okay, you have to wash your hands like every 30 minutes, or you have to try and like whatever. And then it got to like March, and they offered us a leave of absence, and you got paid for however long you were out. So a lot of people took that offer. I think once the leave of absence came into effect, that's when we knew it was a real thing. When I first went back, it was weird. I mean, I forgot how to make a latte, which I've been doing for like a year. I was like, oh my God, how do I make coffee? I'm so confused. And at first, the cafe was closed, just the drive-thru was open, which was nice. I mean, I've had people scream at me for various things. There was one regular who, one day he was in the drive-thru and he didn't like the way I put the lid on his drink, and he started screaming at me and saying, "Are you fucking crazy? You're wearing a mask. Don't touch my fucking drink. You're fucking insane." And I was like, "Excuse me, sir. You need to leave." And he was like, "I'm a great customer here, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Okay, bye." And I shut the window in his face. I was like, I do not have to deal with this. And everyone was shocked. I mean, all my coworkers on the floor were like, what is happening? And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go to the back and cool off for a second. Can someone else do my job for me right now? Because I do not want to be here. We can't ban him because it's my word and my coworkers against his. Apparently we're liars, so we have to wait until he does something in front of my supervisor. And he keeps coming back, and I'm just like, okay, someone else talk to him. And even though my coworkers witnessed his behavior, the customer is always right, to a fault. Which is very frustrating. I mean, they could be screaming at us and we can't retaliate in any way. If we even yell back, then we're losing our jobs, right? So we have to be these happy, cheerful people. Welcome to where we love all our customers. We're so fun, woohoo! And we're in the middle of a pandemic. Next time, I'll just get the name wrong on the cup. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said your name was Asshole. My goal was to be a performer, but the cafe's paying me right now, so it's better than a lot of people. I mean, it's the minimum wage club, and I have a university degree, but I'm not bitter. I'll let people yell at me for putting lids on their coffee. It was February 4th. I only remember because it was the day after my birthday. So coronavirus was a thing, but it wasn't like a thing. I mean, coming out is such a difficult thing to do anyway. And I was just like, I want to get this over with. Tell as many people as possible right now. I didn't want to have to like come out to every single person in my life. That sucks. So I was just like, here you go, I'm gay. And everyone was fairly supportive, which was nice. I was a bit worried because some of my aunts and uncles are a bit Christian crazy. But they didn't say anything to my face, which is good enough for me. My parents weren't the first people I told. I told my brother first, about a month before I came out. He's just a little bit chiller. And I was like, hey, by the way, I'm gay. And he was like, okay, cool, nice. And then I told some friends from work, and then I told my parents. I guess I haven't really been out for that long, to be honest. A lot of my life I spent pretending and trying to fool myself into thinking I was straight. I was like, oh no, I am straight. Praise the Lord, I'm not gay. And I was like very supportive, like, yay, gay people are awesome. But I was like, oh no, it's not for me, it's for other people. And then, I don't know, I went to university, and at university I was closeted, obviously, but I had gay friends, and I had friends who were just open with what they felt, which was new. And then I fell in love with my best friend. That was scary. So I started asking my parents these questions. So if I married a woman, what would you think? Just hypothetically. I'm not gonna just like maybe. And they were like, I mean, that's fine. So another question. What if I didn't marry a man? And they were like, cool. So then I came out to them and they were like, yeah, we figured. I was like, what? How do you know? I'm such a good actress. And they were like, no. The reason I came out was actually because I had a crush on someone I was working with. And I was just like, I can't keep pretending. I can't keep lying to myself and others. And luckily, I felt confident enough to do so because before I was just so unhappy with myself that I couldn't even think about this other thing. So in university, I was severely depressed. I mean, like, I wouldn't get out of bed, severely depressed. And right around graduation, for my final exam, I got something like a 54. And I just started questioning, like, all of my life decisions and everything I'd done up to that point. And I sunk even further into my depression. I mean, I didn't talk to anybody. 54 is a bad mark. I mean, I still graduated with honors, but at the time it felt like, oh my God, my whole life is falling apart. And I just went like radio silent on all platforms. Me and this best friend were supposed to move in together into an apartment in Toronto, and I was just like, I can't go to Toronto. I'm staying home. I can't do this. And so she got really upset and hasn't talked to me since. Ta-da. For this friend at the cafe, who was the second person I had told I was gay. Well, about a month after I came out, he came up to me and was like, I have to tell you something. I was like, okay, sure. And he was like, I'm gay too. And I said, okay, that's great. And he was so scared because he hadn't come out to anyone. His parents are really homophobic, like really, really. And he's living at home right now because of the pandemic. And it just makes me so sad that he has to have these two different sides to himself. And he's finally able to be true to himself, but he can't be that person around others. It's really upsetting. As far as my depression goes, at this point it's turned into like chronic depression. So it's an everyday kind of thing, and some days are better than others, but it's kind of like diabetes where it gets better, but it never really goes away. My brain is just kind of different. So we haven't spent this much time together as a family since like 2014. So all four of us are stuck in this tiny house and we're all trying not to go crazy. I mean, I've regressed back to my 16-year-old self. Never leaving the house really does it to you. But this whole thing is just a mess. I think the world is gonna be really different after all of this. And the thing I hope for the most, that I wish go back to the way it was, is like concerts and live events. That's the thing I miss the most. Just the gatherings of people taking in art and music or plays or whatever. Throughout this whole pandemic, artists and musicians and actors have played such a fundamental role in keeping people sane. I mean, there's been so many live streams and broadcasts of various things. And people have really appreciated it. And I just hope that they remember, after all this is over, who were the people who kept them sane and who gave them this gift.
Sometimes it's easier to hide away when the winter comes and it's shorter days. But I know the dark clouds won't stay. Tomorrow is gonna be better. Sometimes it's easier to hit the road when the world is giving you a heavy load. But if you stay and face it, oh, I know tomorrow is gonna be better. Let the rain fall, let the rain fall till the day is new, and all that's left is just me and you. The best part of us is part of me, so with you is where I'd rather be. But if you can't, I understand, I still believe tomorrow is gonna be better. Let the rain fall, let the rain fall till the day is new, and all that's left is just me and you. I know it's just one of those days, but you stay strong. I'm gonna find a way to take it all and make it okay. Tomorrow is gonna be better. Tomorrow is gonna be better. Let the rain fall, let the rain fall till the day is new, and all that's left is just me and you. Let the rain fall, let the rain fall till the day is new, and all that's left is just me and you. And all that's left is just me and you.